Welcome to Season 5 of the Color Success Podcast, where we talk with guests from AAPI and ethnic minority communities and have real discussions about mental health and what success looks like. I'm your host, Dr. Stephanie J. Wong. Before we get into it, remember to subscribe to our mailing list for free at colorsuccesspodcast.com so you don't miss any updates. There, you will find our socials, YouTube channel, and all episodes on streaming platforms for great additional content. Angela Jia Kim is the founder of Savor Beauty, the natural skincare line and nationally recognized AAPI brand that has a cult following and spas in NYC and Bangkok. Inspired by her mother's Korean beauty rituals, Angela built Savor Beauty into a 7-figure global business from scratch after a decades-long career as a concert pianist. Drawing upon her Korean heritage and experience, Angela's book, Radiance, 12 Weeks of Self-Love Rituals, guides readers through a self-love journey to manifest abundance and joy while looking and feeling gorgeous, juicy, and radiant. Let's welcome the queen of Korean skincare, Angela. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. That's quite an introduction.
Absolutely. So we have so much to unpack here. I mean, wow, you were a concert pianist and then you became a founder and CEO of Savor Beauty. So walk me through the connection there, or at least the journey.
Well, the connection, I think, is beauty and creation. I was a concert pianist since I was 3 when my mom plopped me onto a piano bench. And she was also really into Korean beauty. So I grew up with music and beauty as my backdrop and my training. So I was traveling eventually in my 20s. I was traveling all over the United States, practicing sometimes up to 13 hours a day.
Wow.
And traveling around the United States, giving concerts. And then, I launched this business. I became an accidental entrepreneur because I was experimenting in my kitchen and making lotions and potions just for fun. And I wanted to make something that was organic and that was age delay for my mom and me. And Stephanie, as you probably know, as a Korean aficionado, probably since
a Korea boo is kind of what my friends tease me about, but yeah.
Okay. Well, So Koreans, actually Korean women and men, are really into skincare. And I just loved watching my mom when I was growing up apply these gorgeous creams and cleansers and toners onto her face and massaging her face until there was a glistening glow. And so I think that was sort of, it doesn't seem like a concert pianist would become, a beauty entrepreneur, but that's the bridge right there. My mom.
Yeah. And I imagine though, too, that working 13-hour days, practicing, performing, your skin goes through a whole bunch of things because you have to get up and be out of the house or even in front of people for that long of a time.
Yeah. But something that I learned, my partner, he's always like, Angela, I can get ready in like 2 minutes because I know all the beauty tricks really fast. So in a New York minute, I can get ready. And I think a lot of getting ready quickly is having good skin. Because when you have good skin, you really don't have to do much because your canvas is good. I don't like to wear a lot of makeup anyway. But, when we go out, he'll be like, you're not ready. We have 10 minutes. And I'll be like, don't worry, I'll get there. Because as a pianist, I learned how to put on the eyeliner really quickly because I'd kind of fly in or drive in right before. And you had to kind of go from sweats to looking glamorous in a red gown in like minutes. And so having really good skin, I think, helps you to just get, gorgeous on the glow. Yeah.
Tell me more about your mother and how much she inspired the brand and even your potions, because I just picture you in the early days, like mixing stuff in a pot in the kitchen. And I mean, was she part of the process or how did that work?
She was such a part of the process, but it started back when I was like 12 or 13 and she would get all of these Korean creams from her sisters in Seoul, and they were like made out of pigeon poop or gold flecks. She would put it on her skin and and I would come home from college later, in my 20s, and I would like steal the creams from her because I was so excited to see what's in her beauty cupboard here. And even back when I was a teenager, I would, I don't know about you, Stephanie, but like I grew up in Iowa. It's predominantly white.
Mm-hmm.
There were like basically no minorities. And I mean, there were a few, but you could count them on your hand in my high school. And I remember like what was all the rage back then was don't have pimples, so you mattify your face, right? You make it
Mm-hmm.
super tight, you mattify it. So with powders and everything. So my mom would always look like she had just stepped out of a shower because she would put so much cream and
Look
serum
dewy.
on her face, very dewy. And I would always be like, Mom, that's the wrong way to do it. You're not supposed to look like you have wet skin. Mom, here, put on these powders. And she'd be like, no. So what she was doing back then was she was nailing the glass skin look,
Mm-hmm.
even back in the 80s, you know?
Absolutely. Well, I think it's still highly regarded in various parts of the world, including Korea. And I know there has been a whole bunch of controversy, which, about kind of having that glass white skin and revering it. I think it does have cultural roots, though, because especially in many Asian cultures, that means that you didn't work in the fields, right? That you weren't tanned and dark and things like that. So it's interesting to like unpack that and still have those cultural roots that a lot of the older generations too were brought up in.
Yes. I'm so glad you pulled that in because a lot of, I'm the founder of Savor Beauty and it's natural skincare inspired by Korean beauty rituals.
Right.
And you always look at the Korean like beauty industry and it's $1 billion industry. And it's like you can get caught up in the commercialism of all of that. But actually, you're right. There are ancient historical roots here that is the method behind the madness, right? So, for example, in our serums, we use safflower oil. And the reason why I do that is it's a nod to ancient Korean beauty rituals when women as early as 918 AD, they were using safflower, apricot, peach oils just to put on their face for this glossy sheen.
Right.
And the reason why they did that is because Koreans really believe that your inner beauty is reflected in the
Mm,
outer body. So I think like a shiny face, maybe probably white, was a purity. It represented purity. It represented goodness, and so I think there are a lot of historical roots that we can tie Korean beauty back to.
absolutely. Well, thinking a little bit about your products and looking a little bit more into what makes yours special, because one, when I opened it, it felt like a gift. I mean, it was the packaging is gorgeous. And even here I have the rose
Oh,
mask,
yeah.
yeah, the
Oh,
velvet rose face cake mask, and like it's just so beautifully packaged. And the bags themselves have self-love quotes that you've come up with. Um, I can tell that it's very intentional the way that you make the products, market the products, but tell the audience how you stand out in a crowded skincare market. Because, like you said, $1 billion industry, everyone has their remedy to fixing dark spots and wrinkles and things like that.
well, first of all, thank you so much for receiving the gifts and for receiving that it is intentional. Everything is so intentional. I think we stand out because first of all, you don't see a lot of products made in the United States
True.
by women, led, founded by women, and that has the Korean beauty tie-in. So a lot of people, we have 2 spas in Manhattan, and we specialize in facials. That's it, organic facials that work. And so we combine high tech with these Korean beauty rituals that I actually learned from my aunts watching them and my mom watching them, do like what I call today the K beauty lift, a
Right.
massage.
The
Right.
gua
So
sha and all that stuff. Yeah,
yes,
using the tools.
yes. And so everything is made in New York and it's founded, made, and led by women. So that's a differentiator. But the other thing is, I call us spiritual skincare because we really believe, and I practice it in my life, that radiance is inside out. So you can put all the creams and serums that you want on your face, and we make them fresh and in small batches. So you're getting the freshest vitamins and minerals onto your face for skin vitality. But also, what you eat is equally important.
Yep.
You could eat sugar and a lot of things that your skin doesn't react well to, your stomach, actually, your gut doesn't react to, and you're going to break out. No cream is going to help you with that. No cleanser. You need to really live it inside out. And going back to the Korean adage that I shared with you, I really believe that your radiance comes from your inside. And I think it's so important that I call them radiance rituals. And I talk a lot about it in the book, Radical Radiance.
Yeah, I'll hold this up right here. And again, beautiful cover, but even more beautiful words. Yeah, please talk about Radical Radiance because I loved the way that you used the term.
Well, I believe that how you treat your skin is how you treat your soul. And my mom used to say to me, Gia, make sure that you treat your skin like the most expensive silk on earth. You only have one face, she would say. Have beautiful skin and have beautiful hair. She would always say that to me. So I think that's a beautiful, lesson that we can apply to our souls. Treat yourself like the most expensive silk on earth. And I think when you experience self-worth, respect, you're able to express your soul creatively. You feel productive, you feel abundant, you feel happy, you feel love, you feel a sensuality, a femininity. There's something really beautiful about that, and because I think it makes you more confident, and I think confident women are just stunning. So
Well,
it
and
really,
they can change the world, and they are changing the world. And I think what you're doing is creating this platform or this process to really dig into our strengths inside and out. Because, what's interesting is when I do presentations, this is my random thing is that I will make sure I spend extra care that morning to be able to look my best. And I'm usually not as worried about the content because I've gone through it, I've researched it. Of course, the first thing I chose is the slide templates and the pretty background, but the content and the nerdy part is there. But that just gives me confidence to be able to deliver, the information that I have put so much hard work into. So I think there's a level of, like you said, confidence and happiness that comes from kind of taking a holistic health approach. So, speaking of which, of course, I'm a psychologist by training. How do you feel like that relates to mental health?
well, oh my gosh, where do we even begin?
I know
You
it's the $1,000,000 question.
Well, so mental health has just now, I feel like, become something that, I feel comfortable talking about because as with an Asian background, you never talked about that. You're always good and you're always successful and you got to put on that veneer. So it's something I know I'm a bit late in the game, but I will say that, when I was building my business, I was pushing myself to the ground and I was working practicing piano all day, 6 to 13 hours a day. That was sort of part of my work ethic. So of course it wasn't strange to me when you launch a business, you work all day and you work all night. And in fact, you don't sleep that much to make this business a success. And I think all that coupled with having, a marriage, a daughter, and then a lot of, cold, harsh thoughts when I was by myself. You're not enough. You're not doing enough. You're not successful enough. Go do more. All of these things that I was saying to myself made me not like myself. So then that made me want to work more. And then that led to burnout. And then on top of it, when you don't feel what I was talking to you about, this beautiful confidence or this self-esteem or this self-worth, then you start to look at it on the outside for outside approval. So for me, it was all about, well, accolades, applause, approval. I mean, basically all my life, right?
Yeah.
So that led to, I think, a lot of like physical things that I think were representative of a mental health that was deteriorating. And I was experiencing a lot of eczema, a lot of hives, a lot of gut problems and digestive issues, very tired, but keeping on going because I thought tired is for weak people. And then I just had a panic attack one day in New York City in the subways. And
what did that feel like? Because I think it is a little bit different for everybody, but many people describe it as like a heart attack, but it's not.
Well, so what was happening, can I just share what happened to me?
Oh, please.
Yeah. Okay. So I was in the subway, like always, like every day, multiple times a day.
Yeah.
And I was on my phone per usual, just returning emails. And then I think I looked up and I think I accidentally kicked a woman in the shin and she got upset with me. And then it kind of jolted me. And then I looked around and the subway was crowded. It was like so like we were packed like sardines. And I just couldn't breathe anymore. And I started freaking out and I just needed space. So I started yelling, I'm going to throw up. I'm going to throw up. Just so people would, I wasn't going to, I just needed space. So people would just get off of me, and then the next day, that next stop, I just jumped off and I was like, what is wrong with me? I do this every day. I can't take a subway. So I tried to get on the next stop. I couldn't do it. And I was just like, not even in tears, because I don't even think I could cry back then, because I was just, everything was so stoic and hard. So I just remember 3 days later going and buying a car. And I really to this day have not gotten back in a subway. Like I've tried a few times. It's just something that I don't know why I can't do it. But I couldn't even get into a plane either for almost a decade. I would travel if I had to, but I really had this claustrophobia that had developed. But now, I'm really happy to say that I travel. I've been to 4 different countries this year alone, and I've traveled a lot in a plane. And I think I attribute it to self-care and taking the time out to actually get to know myself, not put so much pressure. And also, I started to be more my feminine energy, especially around the pandemic when we were forced to close our spas. In 2020, 2020, that's such a loaded year, right? Yeah. I was also going through a divorce and, my ex and I are very good friends and excellent co-parents. I mean, we just love our daughter so much. So I'm very lucky to still have him as a support in my life. But nevertheless, it was a divorce, which is another big Asian taboo, right? And then the businesses, the spas needed to have their temporary close down, mandated close down. So I was by myself. So I was meditating a lot. I learned how to cook, Stephanie.
Oh, you're a better woman than me. I just can't stand it.
Well, I didn't like it either. But now I actually, right before I got onto this podcast with you, I made this lamb ragu stew, and I was enjoying it. It was relaxing me. And I started to do a lot of breath work. I really started to enjoy the sensorial experience of skincare, of the double cleanse at night, massaging my face with our carrot rose serum, which has natural retinol. It smells amazing. It's very alluring, sensual scent. I turned my showers into a spa sanctuary. So now I really live a softer and slower lifestyle. And it's just being much more gentle to myself and enjoying and a lot of pleasure. And I love spending time with my daughter, my dog, and my partner. And we just, I don't know, it's a life that's very, I can't think of another way to describe it, but very sensual, sensorial, pleasure filled. Mm-hmm. And I think that's really important, that we slow down and we accept ourselves and be authentic. And what does authentic mean? I was just in Thailand. We just opened up a spa in Bangkok.
I love Thailand.
Okay, you've been there?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it's gorgeous. And I was thinking about the word authentic there because so many things are very authentic, like the outdoor kitchens, where it's not super duper clean and it's like a little messy and it's not American to the T tied.
Like health grades. Yeah.
Yeah. And then there were some apartments and, there's a lot of richness, but there's a lot of poverty there. Yeah. Right. And so these homes and, it's like, but I was like, this is so authentic. Like it's messy and it's just what it is, and I think that's authenticity for us as well, is like we accept ourselves for all the messy imperfections that are us, right?
That's really well said. And I mean, Thailand has a special place in my heart just because so many people there are so, so welcoming and kind. And even folks that don't seem to be making quote unquote a lot of money and right run the fruit stands and all that. And that's reminiscent of Korea as well in certain pockets. And Bangkok, actually, my perception and the other part of it is I just felt lucky to be alive when I crossed the street because those those little
I
motorbikes,
know.
tuk-tuks, like they will go anywhere, non-paved roads. But it's just an amazing place to go. I went to Chiang Mai as well, and I loved it there. It's a little bit slower paced than Bangkok, but we definitely want to go back at some point.
Oh, and the food and everything
Oh,
was really just
so
so
good.
delicious. But I was talking about authenticity, and I, as you were talking about like Asia right now, I was just thinking, like, it dawned on me that I didn't even want to admit that I was Korean because I grew up in Iowa. There were like no, I didn't have any friends that were Korean, and I was made fun of. There was a lot of racism, and so I just remember not wanting to be Korean at
Mm,
all and hiding the kimchi when my friends would come
yeah.
over, and being ostracized. And so when I launched Savor Beauty at first, it was under a different name. I didn't even want to use my last name, Kim.
Mm.
I want to use my married name from my ex-husband, who's Swiss. And it was like, I didn't want to even mention anything. And when the business took off, Stephanie,
When
is
you
when
embraced it,
I embraced it. Yes. When I just said, yes, I learned everything from my Korean mom. And I'm not ashamed of it, and I'm pulling these ingredients. Yes, I got inspired by pigeon poop in a Korean cream, and so I think that we all have like this broken parts of ourselves that we sometimes just really ignore. And I think that does deteriorate our mental health because we're essentially denying a very essential part of ourselves. Yeah.
well, and I think so. We kind of had contrasting childhoods because I grew up born and raised in San Francisco, where there's so many Asian Americans, and went to a 95% of the student body in high school
Oh,
was
wow.
Asian, like estimated. And so it was a very different experience. I had diverse friends growing up. And when I went to college, it was the first time where it felt like, okay, we are a percentage, we are a minority, even though it was at Santa Cruz, but just I'd always been kind of in a bubble where, mostly surrounded by Asian Americans. And then I went to grad school with international students and such, but still a minority in my department, right? And so I think when you're going through these different developmental stages, you see yourself, you start developing your identity in various ways. So you mentioned and touched upon that in a lot of cultural values, it is to be successful. And usually it's defined as like making money and like having a house and the car and the kids, whatever. Um, how has your definition of success changed over time?
Mm. Well, I'll tell you, the way I raise my daughter is it's a lot different than how.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I have two daughters, so totally know that.
And, my parents, and I don't blame them. Whenever
Sure.
I talk about this, I don't want to make it sound like I'm complaining about them because I love them so, so much. And I'm actually very grateful for what they did for me, the sacrifices they made for me. But my my parents put a lot of emphasis on the accolades and the outward appearance and test scores and did you win that piano competition,
Mhm.
and for me with my daughter, I mean, in fact, my daughter sometimes comes to me, she's like, Mom, can you be a little bit more tiger mom with me? Because I do want her to succeed, and my main thing is just try your best.
Yes.
Focus and flow. That's what I say to her all the time. Focus and flow. I want you to try your best, be present, but I don't want to get, and I don't want you to get tied up in the numbers because you're not a number. That's most important to me, that she doesn't get tied up in the outside outcomes, right? That the outcomes that we were raised with. So, and then the other thing is I want her to enjoy what she's doing and get immersed into it. So should I be a little bit more like my parents? Maybe she would be excelling at something big, but I want her to enjoy her life and yes, still do her best, but to savor, right? Savor. And I think our job as parents is to help them to find their brilliance and help them to bring that to life, whatever form that might look like, So that's my definition of success today, is to find that in myself, to honor it, and to find it not only in my daughter, but my employees, and with my friends and my loved ones.
And that what a generational shift, right? Because I want them to still be able to excel in that they enjoy it, like reading, and both kids are very different. One is very motivated by external, right? And if there's not this external, it's kind of like, why do I have to do it? So they both aim to be like word millionaires, where they read 1 million words in a school year. So it was their goal. We're like, it's cool, if that's your goal, we'll support you. But
Right.
even they have state testing this week, and my husband's like telling my oldest, like, whatever, like it doesn't even matter, because she's all nervous about. I think she's way more anxious and nervous about like her performance than we are, because we've never said, oh my God, you have to be A plus student or whatever. But it's the same thing. Like, try your best. The important part is to understand the concepts
Yes.
versus like, having to get 100% on something, right?
Well, I think, yeah, I think probably your kids are like my daughter by osmosis. They might have gotten that Asian gene because sounds like they like to excel. And my daughter is always wanting to be at the top of her class. So maybe by osmosis, they're a little bit like that. But yeah, it sounds like we're very much in line with, I've met too many miserable, successful people.
It's true.
And I was one of them, like a decade ago. So it's not worth it. It's really not worth it. I think you can still have a financial wellness, abundance, and success through a different pathway. I really do.
Yeah.
And I do think that if we women lean a little bit more into our feminine energy, and view it more like creation versus have to be productive all the time, I think it brings out a juicier side of ourselves.
Yeah, and really helping our kids have the foundation. And so, and you grew up in Iowa, now in New York, right? You're located in New York.
Yeah,
Um,
Manhattan.
so very different, probably cultural aspects there. There's probably a little bit more Asian Americans where you live. Um,
Way more.
yeah. So I guess the idea though is, how do you continue to raise your daughter, our kids, where they are also aren't feeling entitled? I'm always thinking about that. And so
Oh my gosh, Stephanie,
yeah,
don't ask this
I
question.
I know. I want to get your insight because, with my oldest, she's like really worried about, oh my God, that's too expensive. How much is it? And we're like, why do you need to worry about that? And yesterday I asked her at dinner and she was like, Mom, I never really thought about why I'm worried about it. And so,
Mm.
because she was like, oh, Mom, I'll pay you back. Because, they get red envelopes and stuff. Oh, I'll pay you back for this boba. And I said, why? It's like, why do you feel compelled to do that? And of course, like, I would say I am partly to blame because, they wanted to buy a $200 dollhouse when they were little with their money. And I said, first, let me have a financial discussion with you. Because one, in my mind, I was like, I got hand-me-down toys from like garage sales. My dad brought home like He-Man toys and we were like stoked. And then these girls want to buy a $200 dollhouse. So I sat down with them and gave them a kid 101 financial thing. So I'm part to blame, but I want her to start thinking about what makes her worried about that, because she's growing up in a very different SES than what I grew up in. So how
But
do
that
we
doesn't
make
sound
sure?
entitled. But that doesn't
No,
sound entitled.
she's not entitled, but I guess I just wonder, how do we continue to manage that? Because the things that they see, these girls are able to travel the world with us, right?
Yes, yes.
So
Well, and that's so funny because, I understand where you're coming from, because there have been many times when I've been like, Sienna, your backyard is literally this is Central Park.
yeah.
You understand what my backyard was, child? Like, I had a swing set that was super rusty, and it was like the funnest thing I ever did was watch the clouds move. Okay. So you live in New York City, and this is like, and I do worry about that because she's growing up in a very different circumstance, but kind of like is that your oldest who, like, she's kind of like that too, where, we put her in fencing classes. And I looked at the fencing summer camp, and it was like, it jumped by $200. It's almost like $900 a week now for summer camp. And I just sort of made a yelp, and I was like, oh my God, Sienna, it's so expensive. She's like, okay, mom, okay, you don't have to send me for the summer. Just send me like maybe a week, and she feels a little bit bad. But I think for me, entitled is more of an attitude. Like, I just really want my daughter to not go through her teenage years thinking that she's the smartest person in the room. I don't know. I don't think, that's why I said, don't ask me this question, because I ask myself this is my biggest struggle right now, is how do I bring up my daughter to feel comfortable in the world, that have the comforts that I didn't have, but not feel entitled to it. Do you have an answer for me?
No, I think it's a constant harmony of like building confidence and at the same time understanding that you're still learning from people. And those are some of the best leaders that I've met, right? Super humble, willing to hear people out. And there's no question that that person's intelligent, but I think how that's communicated and ways that you can still stand up for what you believe in is what I continue to encourage. And I mean, it's been pretty good so far. My kids are happy and healthy and doing well. And, knock on wood, I'm sure Sienna sounds like a fantastic 13-year-old. I'm a little worried about that hitting into the teenage years, but it's a whole new ball game. But
Yeah,
she sounds like an amazing girl, and hopefully
she
one day we
is.
can visit New York City, or you guys come to the Bay Area, and we can all
We would
meet.
love to meet you. That'd be so much fun.
Yeah, I think the girls would love it. So tell me about the book though, because you have your own self-care rituals, but you've translated them and extrapolated it into this book. And so if you can walk us through a little bit about how do you do that routine and how can people even start?
So I think as a high-powered career woman, I own my business. And I think probably a lot of your listeners can relate. When you're trying to succeed in one area of your life, it's really important to know who you are. And I know I'm going to use a big word right now, Stephanie, because when I use it, some people are like, what does that mean? And so the word that I'm going to use is soul. And getting to know your soul, which is your inner being, your inner essence. Who are you inside without all of this external stuff?
Yes.
And knowing who you are, that was actually my first breakthrough, is trying to figure out, well, first of all, acknowledge that I have a soul, and then getting to know my soul. And then in this book, Radical Radiance, which is 12 weeks of self-love rituals to manifest abundance, beauty, and joy, it's basically a 12-week program to know who that soul is, and then 52 different rituals to get to know it, to become closer to who you are. And so some of the rituals will resonate, some may not. But the idea is you pick and choose what works. And I always write an anecdote from my life to deepen the story. And then I give her a little ritual of how to, and eventually you'll make it your own. My hope is that you would pick up 10 new rituals in your life, whether that's a glow smoothie in the morning, or it's a daily morning mist where you're massaging your face, or it's breath work. You know, I even include rituals about productivity, planting seeds. Instead of seeing it as, I have to do this, I view it as planting seeds for potential for growth. So it's a more mindful, intentional way to build abundance and beauty and joy into your life.
It sounds wonderful. And yeah, like I said, I'm reading the intro and I'm going to read it in a way where I can actually fully practice and be present in each week. And I know if week 1 is skincare, so I'm excited about that one. It's very relevant. So where can people find all your wonderful products and learn more about it? Again, like I have tried the caviar eye cream and been putting it on my husband's under eye too, because he has deep bags from having 2 kids doing pickups and drop-offs. So yeah.
Okay, so savorbeauty.com. And if I were to choose my favorite, people are always like, what's your favorite? I would choose our pumpkin serum and truffle face cream. Those are our top sellers, by the way. And the pumpkin is loaded with zinc and meadow foam. So it helps with age spots and locks in moisture. And then the truffle face cream is loaded with vitamin Bs for skin luminosity. You can also sign up for our email list there, where we give lots of tips and tricks and beauty secrets from me and from our beauty estheticians. And then you can go to radicalradiance.com and get the book there. And I have a blog, a personal blog there, where I give my, I call them Savor Secrets on how to live a radiant life. I release that every Wednesday. And I play most on Instagram. So Angela Jia Kim, Jia is the middle name. And I do read all the DMs and respond.
Thank you so much, Angela. It's been so fun, and I can't wait to have our families meet. I really appreciate you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for tuning in. Remember to support us for free by subscribing to our mailing list at colorsuccesspodcast.com. There, you will find our socials, YouTube channel, and all episodes on streaming platforms for great additional content. As Rob Heaps from Partner Track said, success is contagious, so come catch it.